What's up? Welcome back to episode 14, I believe, of our 22 and 22 series. And coming in at number 9 in our power rankings, we got the Denver Nuggets. So they started the season extremely hot, going 13 and 3 through their first 16 games. But their form was eventually ended by a rough 6-game period where they only won once. For the rest of the season, they were pretty much just consistently good, winning 29 out of 43 games, leaving them 43 and 22, third in the West behind both of the LA teams. Their best player this season has undoubtedly been star center Nikola Jokic, who's averaging 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists, which is the most in the league for a center. Their second best player has probably been point guard Jamal Murray, who averages 18, 4, and 5. They have a lot of depth in the front court with Paul Millsap, Will Barton, Michael Porter Jr., Mason Plumlee, and Jeremy Grant, all performing pretty decently throughout the year. But the same can't really be said about their guards, with shooting guard Gary Harris putting up subpar numbers for a starter. Now, things were looking pretty bleak for the Nuggets during just a few weeks ago, as their star center, Nikola Jokic, tested positive, but he has since made a full recovery and is expected to join his teammates in Orlando. I'm not sure if he has, but if he hasn't, then he will. They have an okay schedule in terms of difficulty in the bubble, and I think that they'll go a respectable 4-4, and they'll remain in the third seed. All right, so now we're moving on to the power rankings portion of the video, and I have them at number 9, which may seem a little bit low for a team that is currently the third seed, but my reasoning for this is just because while they are very consistent as they showed throughout the year, they're a bit kind of too consistent, I guess, in that like they're never bad, but they're also never really an amazing finals contender type team. So they don't really have like the upside, I guess, that some of the more inconsistent teams that some of the more inconsistent teams have. So I think teams like the Rockets, Sixers, and Heat, while they may not be as consistent as the Nuggets, which is shown by their playoff records, or not their regular season records, they have kind of the talent and capacity to perform amazingly well in the playoffs. So I have them below. I have the Nuggets below all of those teams.
So I actually had the Nuggets a little bit higher than Andy. I had them at number 7, and this was because although the Nuggets, they may not have the immense talent that some other teams do, so like the Rockets, which you mentioned, I think the Nuggets do have a very good potential, to say the least, because the Nuggets are one of only 3 teams in the NBA who've had a win against each of the top 2 teams in each conference. That may sound a little bit surprising, but the Nuggets are one of the only teams who have been proven to be able to beat some of the other really good teams. So I think you guys are sleeping a little bit on the Nuggets because even though they may not have like James Harden or a Russell Westbrook or like I don't know, like a very good star, like I mean they have Nikola Jokic, but they may not have like the total the great offensive and defensive weapons. I think the Nuggets are a very great team that work very well together, and they shouldn't be slept on because they have proven that they're able to contend and compete and even beat some of the top teams in the league. And that also goes to show that their record is really good too. Their record is actually better than the Rockets and some of the other teams that you ranked higher than the Nuggets. So yeah, so I think the Nuggets are number 7.
I agree with a lot of the points that Rohan said, but I do have to agree with Andy in that my ranking of the Nuggets is still at 9. So there's a few factors which play into this. The first reason is I really like the Nuggets, but they are the textbook definition of a regular season team. Like if you look at the Nuggets last year, in the 2019 season, they were the 2nd seed in the Western Conference and went 54 and 28. But if you look at how they performed in the playoffs, they were taken by the San Antonio Spurs with only DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge and like Derek White to 7 games, and they barely won in Game 7. Then in the second round, they lost to the Portland Trailblazers, the same team which is currently the 9th seed in the Western Conference and has a chance of not making the playoffs at all. They lost to them in 7 games. So they are a very good regular season team, and I really respect the depth what they have. but they lost key pieces like Malik Beasley. They gained a couple pieces, like they have now Monte Morris, who's looking pretty good. Michael Porter Jr. is looking pretty decent. Jeremy Grant. But I think this team is a bit young, and they need a few more defensive pieces other than like Gary Harris or Will Barton to match up against some of the better forwards in the league. Additionally, I feel like they're a bad matchup for certain teams. Like I feel like the Rockets especially, they don't have the wing defenders to compete with Russell Westbrook and James Harden. And the inside presence, Jokic, he can't capitalize on the situation in the playoffs a lot of the times. A lot of the times, even though he performed really well in the playoffs, he isn't a scorer and he can't carry the scoring load as much as people think he can. And he might go off and just try to get his triple doubles and do a lot more passing. I truly respect Jokic as a big man, but I don't think the Nuggets have the talent requisite to make it further than the first or second round.
All right, so that wraps it up for this episode of 22 in 22. Do you agree with Rohan, or do you agree more with Aki and me? Who do you think will be at number 8? Leave your predictions in the comments below. This is the Benchwarmers signing off. See ya.